Okay, well, I've decided I need engine parts off of this one before I paint the other one. This will be the very last time this engine starts. It's got absolutely no coolant in it whatsoever. And when I tear the block apart, you'll see why. And the clutch is out of adjustment, and that's a video coming up very, very soon. Because that's the first thing I got to do. Yeah, I know you're bitching. I got the wrong clutch plates in this, so I've got to machine the flywheel down. That's why it's grinding. That'll be a video all on its own. Okay, off to it. Well, the first thing I did when I got it up is I strapped this thing to the hoist. The reason why is this vehicle, without this engine and transmission, is light. And the ass end hangs off farther than the front end, and there's no way to lift it up on the hoist other than to have that happen. So I've got all 4 points done. I'm going to do 2 videos. I got to do some editing, but this is going to be slash how to make your adjustment with clutch packs from a John Deere, or slash let's get this engine out of here. First thing I'm going to do is get the oil drained here, and I'm be interesting to see if I get more water out of this, or coolant, or how much of it did actually drain out. Yeah. Oh, clumpy clumps. Look at it. Oh, look at the nastiness coming out of that. Oil normally isn't got that green tint to it. Yeah. This block's rotted out. So now what I got to do is I'm going to get this cover off, the country driving exhaust cutout, and then start pulling floorboards. The more I thought about it, I'm going to have to take that friction disc measurement after I get the flywheel done, which entails popping the tranny in and out, but it's not a big deal. It's just a piece of cake getting this thing out of here. So first thing I'm going to do is I already disconnected the breakdown, or the cutoff down there. Get the cutoff spring off of here. Come on. I'll pull the floor pan out. I'll be pulling them all out. It's fairly easy. There's usually screws that hold these in, but they shook out, so I'm not even going to bother with it. Well, I'll put them back in eventually. This is how easy it is to get at this stuff. Now what I'm going to do, I got to take the starter button pedal off on the far right, and then the throttle that just unscrews. And you're looking at the emergency brake right there, which is the drive shaft. I guess I could go ahead and get the drive shaft off and start disconnecting stuff from below. Well, as always, we pull the drive shaft off, mark it, just because. It wasn't vibrating before. Take that equation right out. So I've got these here, and I got those in there, which are a little more difficult. I really don't need to show you me doing righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So I'll get back to you when the drive shaft's out. Okay, for me to get this transmission out now, first I got to get the freaking light unhooked. Those paws right there for the throw-out bearing, I have to go up above and on both those paws and slide them out so that I can pull the transmission out and leave the throw-out bearing as part of the clutch assembly. So let's put our car down and get on that. Okay, to get these paws out of here, we got to take these nuts out. It's going to be tough to get in here, but this clamps those claws together. Get those bolts out of there, and then there's a keyway on the clutch shaft, and then you can slide these down the shaft and to disengage them from the throw-out bearing. I might have to take off that where the spring attaches to the shaft to allow the shaft to move in and out a little bit. Can't remember because it's been 5 years since I did this, but I'm going to start with getting those bolts out and trying to get those paws slid over. Okay, this is the last of the bolts holding it in right now. First time I took this transmission out, it was not fun. I'm hoping it goes better this time. The pilot shaft, or the input shaft, was bound up in the pilot bearing. That was a lot of fun. Okay, come on, baby. What is holding you in here? Should be nothing. Maybe gotta let it down a little. Okay, gotta let it down just a little bit. I still have that pilot bearing in there, or that input shaft. So I have to get the emergency brake down below that. The problem is the engine does not want to drop back. I might have to take this emergency brake out of the way. Yeah. I got to get the emergency brake out of the way. That's what it's looking like. Ah, great. Let me try lowering it just a little bit more. Oh, maybe, maybe not. Oh, it's going to work. Okay. Oh, this came out so much easier than the first time I did this. Whew. Look at that. Tranny is out. Now let's get working on getting that clutch out of the way. Well, I don't know why everything takes longer than I think it will, but it always does. I want something strong. What's that? 6'9", 6'2", 6'0", 6'9" it is. I'm going to be there in a few, I don't know, days, weeks, months. I don't know. I'll get more there. All right, today's the day the engine comes out. And I was thinking last night, I've got a video about the transmission coming out, clutch adjustment, one about the engine being rebuilt, engine going in. I'm going to have to just take a lot of footage and bust all this up and put them into different segments. So if it's going to be a few days before you see any, or weeks before you see any videos on this, because I probably got a week of editing to do. Transmission's out. Now I got to get the engine out without scratching anything. And I got to do it without taking this bar that holds the fenders on across. So basically the engine's got to come up and over that bar. First thing I'm going to do is start in a bolting accessories, intake, exhaust, water pump, all that stuff. And then I will get that tension bar that holds the radiator in out and get the radiator off. So let's get to it. Well, all the antifreeze didn't make it down into the oil pan, which leads me to believe I might just have a blown head gasket or a cracked head. This head had multiple cracks in it that I attempted to repair with lock and stitch. So maybe one of those lock and stitch cracks failed. This is going to be an interesting teardown to see why I had antifreeze in the oil. So the first thing I need to do is drain the vacuum canister. And I'm not getting a lot out of there for some reason. Maybe it's just plugged up. There we go. It was plugged up. Now that's draining. Start getting some of these lines off of here. These were a pain in the ass to bend up. If you've ever bent brass before, there ain't no going back like copper. Copper, you get some leeway. Nope. You get some leeway. If you put a wrong bend in it, you can straighten it back out most of the time. So I don't think I'm going to bore you with a lot of this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what's going on here. Once these lines are out of the way, I've got a throttle to take off, timing advance rod to take off. This is your primer. There's a plunger in the dash that in the winter forces gasoline directly into the intake ports. And believe me, I've tried to start this thing on a 20-degree day, and even then it doesn't want to start. So I'm going to be getting all the brass out of the way, and then I'll get back to you after that. Well, I'm underneath, or actually I'm standing where the floorboards would be. And this is where the vacuum canister would normally mount on the inside. You can see there's little corks in here where the lines used to come through. And the reason most of these canisters at these car shows are on the outside now is two reasons. The fuel's gotten better. Back in the day, it was prone to hydrolocking a lot. Not hydrolocking, but vapor locking a lot. And they didn't want it near the heat of the exhaust manifold. We've got better fuels now, that helps. And a primary reason it was moved to the outside on a lot of these vehicles is because it dripped on the floorboard and it dripped on your feet. And a lot of people didn't like this because considering in 1920 this car cost almost $3,000. That's some big coin in today's money. I'm sure the guy driving this had some high buck shoes on. So he didn't want his feet dripped on. But for now, I'm taking this canister off to get it out of the way. And I want to do some maintenance on it. I had rebuilt this several years ago. But where the brass fittings go into it, it's starting to leak again. It's just part of the game with these things. So there we are. The canister's coming off right now. Okay, where I'm at now, just believe it or not, they had lower engine covers 104 years ago. Then went away from it and back to it again. Now I got to get these covers off primarily so I can get the exhaust down and out. I guess I really don't have to take it down and out, but I want it out of my way. For me to do that is, you'll see there's some nuts and in bolts. I put those in backwards, and the reason why is I wanted it to look like it was bolts all the way across from the top. It was aesthetically pleasing to look at it that way than random nuts holding this pan on. Not a big deal. I just have to take the nuts off, go up above, and then unbolt them from the block. And then these attach to the body through the smaller ones right there. There's several of them. If I can get those off, then I can get these pans off. I'm pretty sure there's some in the front too. Well, looks like they're supposed to be. I wonder who the mechanic was that put that engine in last time. Yeah, let's get those off. Okay, exhaust carburetor out of the way. Anybody who's worked on a tractor, it's pretty much not any different than that. Now, the intake and exhaust manifold share these common studs. And what's going on here is, I'll take it apart later, maybe. If I can get this off without taking it apart, I won't, but there's copper gaskets in here that allow the heat from the exhaust manifold to pre-warm the intake manifold, because once again, how shitty the fuel was back then. All these bolts are in, and nuts are in pretty rough shape. Let me see if that's going to come off. No, it's going to want to, I'm going to want to have to separate the intake from the exhaust, or at least loosen it up. Let me give it another try. There's only copper gaskets holding this to the, oh yeah, that needs to come off. What is that, 9/16? Let's see here. I think it's 9/16. 9/16. Now, this should come off just by loosening these. I would hope. So I'm sure it was pretty bound up on those studs. Now it wants to be taken apart. Nice. Yeah, I know I should be using the speed impact. Boy, that's still pretty tight. Yeah, I'm going to be twisty for a little bit. Let me go get something else. Okay, let's try this again. Goes a lot faster that way. I'm going to leave the center ones semi-loose. Get these out of here. Give this a little pry. There we go. Boy, that intake is stuck to the... You know, I wonder if there's bolts in here behind here I'm not seeing. Knowing me, that's probably the problem. Okay, here you can see the exhaust passages. Basically all it is a copper gasket that allows the open exhaust to actually touch the manifold. Oh, there's the problem right there. What size is that? 5/8 or 9/16? Who knows? I'll grab them both. Should be 9/16. That's what the other one was. Yeah. Does that hang on there? No, it does not hang on there. So that means I have to take them completely out. I don't need to bore you with that. Hey, I'll show you something. This is basically an inner copper, outer copper with asbestos sandwiched between them. I had absolutely no leak paths. That held up pretty damn good. When I taped this off, paint the engine, I actually had taped off around the donuts, put the manifold on with tape, and then took the manifold off or cut around it. You know what I'm saying? So I was metal to metal. Let's see, what do we got? We got some water leakage there coming from the gasket. I'm not seeing anything crazy on this side. So let's go get everything apart on the other side. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to get the front cover off and line up the timing marks on the timing gears before I index that at top dead center. So let me get to pulling the hood and the radiator off. I am going to have to ask for help. The way you get this rod out of here is on the inside under the dash. There's a nut that you take off. You loosen up this, and that'll allow you to tilt the radiator forward. There's a pin on the hinge here and a pin on the hinge there, and you can lift the hood off. I need 2 people to do this because I do not want to scrape anything. So I need to make some phone calls. Well, I'm underneath the dash again without mess of wiring. Well, hope I don't have to get into that. But anyways, right there is the captive nut for that rod. So when I turn this out, 1 or 2 things is going to happen. Either this captive nut is going to come off the rod, or the rod is unscrewing out of the radiator. Either way, it doesn't matter to me right now because the lower radiator mounts are still tight, and the hood is shut. So the hood has got nowhere to go. So that's the plan. get that out. Okay, the rod did come out of the radiator. I did not show the hood coming off because one or more helpers may or may not be in the witness relocation program. So the hood's off and the rod did unthread out of the radiator. So I got a pair of vice grips on that end. I'm going to go back underneath there, get that captive nut off, and then I can get the rod out. And you can clearly tell that I have antifreeze up in this right here. So either the crack is on this side somewhere or it's a head gasket leak. And there's also antifreeze on the back side of the valve cover. And there was no rust on any of this when I put it together. So it's been like this for a while now. Hey, let's get that rod out of there. And then for me to get the radiator off, if you're going to notice, you can't get the belt off with the radiator in or change the belt. You have to pull the radiator out. Just imagine that every time you need a belt. 2 bolts on the bottom, your hose clamps, and the radiator comes right out. I got the lower nuts off. The hose is off. It should come right out. Oh man, this thing weighs 50 pounds. Holy shit. Oh, let me shut the drain off on it too. Okay. So, slowly getting there. Thank God that's a 2-piece damper, or I'd be screwed. Let me get to taking the generator off. It's about as tight as that needs to be. It doesn't need to be too much tighter than that. The end is in sight. I'm just going to point out engineers were just as fucked up back then as they are nowadays. Because hood and radiator have to come out to get this off. Isn't that amazing? Or even just change the belt. Well, you could probably get away with taking the upper hose off. But please, man, really? Radiator has to come off to work on the generator. And that's an aluminum fan belt too. Or not belt, but blade. So we all know what happens when you accidentally bump an aluminum blade. Okay, let's get the water pump off. It's a piece of cake. Just 4 bolts. The worst part about putting all this all back together is this is a show car, so everything's got to be painted after it's torqued. And what do we got here? We do have some water in there. So either that gasket failed, and just water in that one. So either that gasket failed or that's a through hole. I need to remember that. Okay. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, I forgot. This has got a rod on here. You look, the water pump drives off that pin that goes into the camshaft that I showed earlier when I was putting it in there. Let me get that rod off of there. That's a drain on the bottom of the water pump I forgot to disconnect. Well, I found one-way coolant's been getting in there. There's no seals on this, they're slingers. And there's always weeping on these graphite seals on the water pump, and you can clearly see that it's been leaking right here. It usually weeps for a while until you get it torqued down enough and it seats in and it'll finally stop leaking. But with that said, I am touching the camshaft right now Definitely a leak path here. And on the water pump, I don't know if you saw, there was a slinger shield that went in here. So where if it did leak, it would drip down, but some clearly is getting past that. We have to maybe think about putting a felt seal or something in there, modernizing it a little bit. We'll see. I'm gonna pull the cylinder head off next. First thing I have to do is get this lifter cover off of here. I already took all the bolts out but one. When I put this together, put it together so that the gasket would stay with the cover. So if I needed to access this, I wouldn't destroy the gasket every time. It looks like that is not going to be the case, as it has adhered itself to the cover after a couple hundred miles. That's all right. I have a new gasket. I ordered a gasket kit from Olson. They had everything I needed right in stock. They don't, they'll make it on the fly for you. God, this, come on off of here. Once again, I'm leaving the distributor on there because I want to make sure the timing's where it needs to be, so I can copy it, move it back to the new engine. I should be able to get this out of here. Oh, what is holding it up? I have gotten it out of here before. There we go. What do we got going on here? Yeah. See any water dripping? Let me know. Let me go put this away over on this side. Where the water was dripping before, the bottom of the block had rotted out. Underneath the lifter cages, or whatever you want to call them, lifter racks. Maybe there's water dripping from up there, isn't there? Or is that just oil? Hard to tell. I do have some rust right there. Some antifreeze looking rust right there. Okay. I'll be able to see this better once I get the cylinder head off. So, normally I'd iron a gasket off by unbolting it in a sequence, but I'm not using this block again. I might not ever be using this head again. And this isn't a torque yield anyway, so it's not really torqued down that tight. Maybe 90 foot-pounds, so 100. These are grade 8 studs, so anything more than 100, and these things would start to give way. There's one thing missing off of this engine that the other engine has, and I'm not sure why. I think somebody just forgot to put it on. There's springs that's supposed to go in between these rocker arms to keep them where they need to be. There is a groove and a ball bearing, spring-loaded ball bearing indent in there that does help hold that all together, but I'm not sure why this doesn't have it. Like I said, you can see this was all rusted up here. There is no oil pressure up here. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. There's no China dam cast into the cylinder head. So every 100 miles, you're supposed to pull the valve cover off. And, oh, that stud's coming out. Every 100 miles, you're supposed to pull the valve cover off. It takes 30 seconds. And then with this oil can over here, oil, that stud's loose too. Oil the rockers and the push rods. So I'm going to finish taking this apart. And then the next thing you should probably be seeing is me grunting and moaning while I'm straddling the engine, pulling the cylinder head off. I want to show you something. When you go to pull these push rods out, the lifters and the push rods between the two have a ball bearing that this spins on. So be careful when you pull these out that you're not dropping ball bearings anywhere. You might have to reuse them. You might have to reuse them one day, but I got a pack of new ones just in case. Okay, let the fun begin. This is just copper gasket, so this should come right up. It's only the studs that are holding that in place. It's loose. Oh God, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to stand on the running board. There's really nothing to grab this thing by. I tell you, the running boards are made of wood. Exhaust port. Maybe an intake port. It's a little cleaner, huh? Oh, I can get my hands under it. Come on. Come on, baby. Whew. Let me get this sitting on the studs so I can get down a little bit. Let me get them sitting on the lower studs. This is going to be a pain in the ass. There's a real no good way for me to do this. When I go to put the good head on, I will have people help me. Okay. Let's take a look. Let's take a look and see what we got going on. Well, I'm not seeing any glaring cracks, but I am finding something interesting down inside of the block. And I'm going to get these studs out of the way first. And if you guys don't have a stud remover like this, I mean, they're like 20 bucks on eBay. They're well worth the money. Well worth the money. So let me get all these studs out of here. Yeah, so yeah, don't bother double nutting on any of this. Just go buy the stud remover and installer. Well, with all the studs out, I just pulled the valve cover off. Not the valve cover. Jesus, I've been doing this too long. The head gasket. I've got a blown head gasket. There's a little bit of a leak path right there. The cylinder head was decked, but the block wasn't. I can guarantee the deck block was warped. But look at this. Doesn't that look like something that would come out of a baby's diaper? I've never changed one. Hell, I've never even touched one. But I'm thinking that's what it would look like. So I'm thinking the epoxy repair, if the rotted block finally let loose, Let me get this engine out of here. We'll figure what it is. And also, I can't get the front cover off just because the motor mount attaches to the front cover. But I forgot, added a timing mark to it. So we're at top dead center right there. And yes, the combustion chamber is in the block. It's not in the head. So I've got my distributor lined up where it needs to be. I got it marked. You bolt that into one position, so there's no adjusting that. If you want to adjust the timing, pull the rotor off, and you loosen up the lobes for the points, and then you move that. So now I can take that off. I've got that in position. I know where it needs to be. So let's get at it. Well, some observations here. I am definitely going to be putting an oil filter on this and running the proper oil. What do we got in here? There's a busted cotter pin. What do we got here? Just crap. Ugh. This is some nasty, nasty stuff. I got some chunks of metal. I don't know. The camshaft's in bad shape here. What's this? Another cotter pin. What do we got here? Another cotter pin. Another cotter pin. What the hell? Did I put Chinese cotter pins in this? Let's see where these are coming from. I didn't trim them last time. I wonder if they were hitting the dipper. No. They're all there. Where the hell did those cotter pins come from? Well, that stumps me. Huh. That really stumps me. Well, let me get the oil pump off. Got to disconnect this oil line. That's the feed. I think what I'm going to do is when this feed comes through here, I'm going to run it underneath the engine belly pan there, and I'm going to put an inline oil filter there. The car's being judged, but I have to live with this crap because I'm running non-detergent oil. I know a lot of this is because of the antifreeze in here, but this is a product of not having detergent oil. That's why they went to it. So let me get the oil pump off. All that holds this on is this tube and that nut, and that'll slide right down. And then I can pop this out of here. There's only 4 bolts. Okay, I've got it starting to come out. I got to bring it up on an angle. I made those plates the last time. Just being very careful not to bump anything while I do this. I'm going to do a combo of hoist and jack stand maneuvers at the same time. I'm going to need both hands, but finally, I got it out. And I've already got a beer cracked and sipped on. Ain't much to this thing. Now you're seeing why I strapped this to the hoist, huh? So, I didn't ding or dent anything, which is good. Scratch anything. Now I got to start taking parts off of this engine, the good parts that are, putting on that. But I want to show you something. This is the motor mount. This is the early motor mount. And what's supposed to happen here, so you have shims in here, and you put a oiling cup on that, and you tighten it down to where you can slightly turn the motor mount, so that way the frame can flex, or the engine can flex and not cause the frame to flex too much. If that makes any sense. This one, yeah, that one I've got loose. I'm going to go with this motor mount because this one I can put the oiling or grease cup on and just make sure they're about the same. I'll check the part number. I've got the book. I'm noticing with Nash is they have the same part number on parts that are different, i.e. I'm pretty sure that rear cam bearing. So I think, I don't know if I'm done for the day or not. I've been out here 6-7 hours. At the very least, I might get this block cleaned out so I can look at and see what the failure mode was. Okay. I'm going to be at this brewery soon. Sitting on the outdoor deck, looking at Lake Superior. I love Minnesota beer. Well, I'm pretty impressed. Now, mind you, I rebuilt this engine 5 years ago. And this is Babbitt from the 50s. And with all that cooling in there, this Babbitt held up pretty damn well. And then, look at this. It's been running like that since the 50s with that chunk of metal out of there. These are cast iron pistons. Looks like somebody couldn't get the proper rings for it, so they doubled up ones, which is, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that one way or another. Brakes moving freely. I'm just breaking this down because this block is trashed. I'm going to get rid of it. You can kind of see some of the repair I did on it in here, where this is all epoxy. Looks like it started to flake apart right there. I'll be interested to see what it looks like from the inside. Well, let me get this crank out of here. Let's get this crank out of here, see what we got. I've got that other engine to rebuild. So far, I'm seeing a lot of usable parts in this one. Other than that piston. The crank looks good. I mean, I don't even think I'd turn this thing, to be honest. The condition of the bearings we're in. Oh, I guess there's one I forgot to loosen, huh? There's always one. Yep, I forgot to loosen that one. And that one. These have the shim packs too. So what I want to do is loosen these up, slide them back, and slide the shims back on the bolt so I don't lose them. Because if I do, well, I'm never going to use this block again. I might have to line bore something. Well, these shims are staying up here. Great ideas. It didn't work out the way I wanted it to. No, there you go. This side did the same thing. Son of a bitch. Guess I don't have to keep these shims where they are because this block's never going to go together again. Come on. I do everything the freaking hard way. Okay. Look at that journal. It's in great shape. Considering this has been running with antifreeze in it, and you saw the sludge. How is this not just totally destroyed? I don't know if you can see that. Look at that. There must be something to be said about Babbitt bearings and longevity. Won't get the bottom ones out. Do this one the way I wanted to do the top one. I am filthy dirty. I got oil in my hair. I'm not even fucking with these shim packs. I don't even know what I'm doing. Just get these things right the hell out of here. That bearing caught something, but it embedded. Throw out bearing is down to copper, or the thrust bearing is down to copper on both sides. All in all, it all looks pretty good. I better stand up. This is a big crank. No, she didn't say that. Yeah, I'm down to, I think when I put this together, the end plate was like 70 thousandths or something. I'll have to go through my records. That's another reason I'm rebuilding all this. The piston, the bore clearance was 50 thousandths. Yeah. Oh, that's porosity. Geez, look at all of them falling off of there that I missed. They're sticking to everything. Okay. Now let me get this block outside now that everything's off of it and get it cleaned up. I want to see where the leak was. Well, I found where the failure was. It's where I thought it would be. Let me show what's going on here. I don't know if you can see inside of here if it'll adjust or not. But that is epoxy in there right now. And it is hard and it is good. When I got this block, I power washed it and I found that there were rust holes down in there. What I did was I drilled them out. I don't know if you can see right there. There's a pipe plug right there. So I pipe plugged over here, here. I filled up that area with the splash on epoxy. When I put the vehicle or the engine in, and I went to put the radiator fluid in, I had left the drain plug out, and it went right up, right through. I found that this portion of the block had rusted out too, but I could not get to it because I didn't have the access from above because I didn't have the access. So I used the splash zone here too, and you can see where it failed. You can actually see where it was rusting. So this had been leaking for about a year or two, I was thinking, but it finally really let loose. Really let loose here over the winter. With that said, now that I got this block out and I can get to the bottom side of that, I am going to save this block because I might need it one day, and I think I can furnace braze the bottom of that, or just braze the bottom of that in. It's not structure. There's no pressure on the coolant. So I was going to take this to the scrap yard, but I'm going to hold on to it until I get that other Nash up and running. And then at that point in time, this is going in the garbage. Okay, now I officially got everything cleaned up. It is beer drinking time. And I should be, well, going the other direction, as in assembling. I do have to paint and clean up some nuts and bolts, but this is where it's going to slow me down. I got to take the flywheel into a machine shop and have them cut that because my lathe is only a 14, and that's way more than 14 inches in diameter. I already had one, but Ooh, I'm going on a 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going on a 10-hour day. That beer gave me my second wind. I'll go for an Earth Rider. That's where somebody fumbled and bumbled giving a speech, as you recall. Something about a hard hat being on backwards, too. Just saying.